Ritchie is known for bringing together ragtag teams of unlikely heroes and then placing them in precarious positions. He's done it again with the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. It's an action film that's based on actual events. So will this World War II story inspire applause or lull into sleep? Based upon recently declassified files of the British War Department, this tells the story of the top-secret combat unit composed of a motley crew of rogues and mavericks who goes on a daring mission against the Nazis using entirely unconventional and utterly ungentlemanly fighting techniques. Ultimately, their audacious approach changed the course of the war and laid the foundation for the British SAS and modern Black Ops warfare. So we've got Henry Cavill, Alan Ritchson, Isa Gonzalez, Babs Olusanmokun, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Alex Pettifer, Hero Fiennes Tiffin, Henry Golding, Till Schweiger, Rory Kinnear, Cary Elwes, and Freddie Fox, who are all getting into this spy action. This is about a small group of sailors tasked with executing a secret mission, and they're notoriously known for not following orders and then generally causing mayhem, which works for this mission. Now, this is billed as an action comedy, and both are present, but neither are really there enough to classify it as either. I mean, I'd lean more towards describing this as a spy drama that features bits of gnarly action and then some laugh-out-loud comedy. Cavill and Richardson are certainly the standouts when it comes to delivering the laughs. Their setups and then mannerisms are excellent at eliciting chuckles and smirks. Now, one whole scene involving Cavill is almost hard to take seriously because of his antics. But the charming demeanor that both he and Richardson possess, it makes them instantly endearing. Now, when it comes to the actiony bits, it's fairly savage and filled with brutality, especially with Richardson's character. I mean, his size is already menacing, but the speed at which he can attack, it is awesome and frightening. And he's a fan of the stabby stuff, so we get to see his insanely fast hands dart around a victim as he fills them with holes, whether they come from a knife or his arrows. And I loved it when he got to go ham on some Nazis. I mean, it was just a spectacular showcase of barbarity. Now, Isa Gonzalez and Babs Olusanmokun are the standouts of the entire story. I think they get the most screen time as they work the Nazis that are near the target that Cavill's group is headed towards. They're both cunning, highly intelligent, using their wiles to get close to their marks and then employ their spycraft. And their situation also comes across as the most precarious, adding suspense and tension to the growing intensity of the overall story. And then there's Till Schweiger. He's portraying a Nazi leader who is grotesquely inhumane, but he tries to come off as polished and proper. Now, I liked his back and forth with Gonzalez, and he maintained a fair amount of unhinged danger, which added to some of the excitement. But when the action comes to a standstill and then the narrative bounces between politics and meetings, the movie as a whole, it slows way down. The loss of momentum, it made me feel the time. And I didn't even mind the lack of action in spots. I just wanted a more evenly paced presentation. Now, thankfully, as the third act builds, there is an ever-increasing amount of suspense and anxiety. I mean, this is when all the plans are culminating and it's go time. The musical score, it begins to ramp up both in volume and energy, and then that also works to propel the story forward with some urgency. Then the huge action sequence for the finale, it is awesome. I mean, there is action scattered all over this huge area, so we get to watch many of the characters engage in different ways. Still, though, my favorite in this, it was Richardson. I mean, he has a moment when he gets to make a choice on weaponry, and the smile on his face as he chooses, somewhat diabolical, but also gleeful. Now, I was way more engrossed in the story than I might otherwise be, simply because this is based on real people and events. I mean, yeah, there's certainly dramatization and liberties that are taken, but simply telling the story of this ramshackle group and how they eventually become what is known as the SAS, that's entertaining and informative. And the cast doesn't disappoint. I mean, each grabs hold of their persona and then plays it to the hilt, whether that be the hyper-violent Richardson or the influential Olusanmokun. I do wish we got more background on all of them, though. There's a cursory exposition dump as Cavill names who he wants on his team, and we get a tiny glimpse of who they are and why he would want them. Outside of that, though, all the players are barely given any development or history. And for this to work, you know what, we don't really need much. Still, though, since it is based on actual people, to know a little bit more about them does seem warranted. Now, I think if you're familiar with Ritchie's storytelling style, you'll be able to catch some of his go-to items, like large titles to announce locations or events. There's also the limited use of a camera that's placed on an object as it moves about the environment. Outside of that, though, this is much more of a standard presentation style. Ritchie does employ his great sense of visual timing that accentuates humorous moments. And they do work, especially when large bits of action are going and we need to watch the characters' reactions. But if you're going in expecting a lot of quick edits and transitions with kind of this energetic, in-your-face aesthetic, this doesn't have it. And I'm not saying that as a negative. It just stood out to me because he veers away from his signature style and goes for a more mainstream vibe. So overall, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare features a dynamic and likable cast to tell its true tale of heroism. The character background is lacking, and the pacing is uneven, leading to a noticeable runtime. But a few magnificently exciting action sequences also employ humor with perfectly timed deliveries that help to distract from the occasional slowness. The violence is barbaric and savage, and while so many instances feel far-fetched and unbelievable, knowing this story is based on real people makes the implausible seem all the more possible. Now, the audience in the screening I was at, they seemed to be having a lot of fun with the film. They were laughing and cheering, even some applause. I chuckled along with the humorous bits, but I didn't find all of it laugh-out-loud hilarious. And unfortunately, I was never invested enough in any of the characters to applaud for them. But it was nice to hear so many people having a great time. There's no sex, some brief nudity, a lot of profanity, and then a ton of gnarly violence. I give the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare 3.5 out of 5 couches. So what's an upcoming movie that you're looking forward to seeing? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.